Okay, well, let's jump right into this first assignment. I'm going to show you this page here of our new normal. And let me bring up the whole page. Now you should see the whole screen. I'm going to keep this up the whole time so that you pay attention to it. This is for the next week. This is the core of our assignment. Because you see, what God wants to do for us over this next week is help us understand the spheres that He has given us responsibility and caretaking in. These will also be the spheres in which we experience His promise fully. Remember, when He created man, He put him in the garden. And He put him in the garden to train him. And to train him not so that he would live all of his life in the garden, but that so that he would be prepared for whatever sphere that He would put him in on the earth. And of course, over time, he would have children, and there would be more, and they would each be in their spheres. And that's what God has done for us as well. When He brings Israel to the land, He's bringing them to their sphere. See, a sphere can be a lot of different things. And God wants to, oops, this is not the screen I want you to see. Let me go back. Here we are. And so God wants us to see our spheres and identify our spheres and see them as He sees them. So while I leave this screen up here today, and you'll see it for the next several days, I'm only going to talk about them one main point at a time. Because if you don't know your sphere, then all of a sudden you'll be driven by whatever catches your attention next. And you'll lose your focus. I like to think of it like this, because you see, I think God calls us to be, especially in this hour, to be watchmen. A watchman is not someone in ancient times was not someone who watched everything, everywhere, all the time. A watchman had assigned a spot on the wall of the city. In this case, let's think of the city of Jerusalem with its wall around it. It had watchmen posted at different places around the wall. And there were different ones because they had a specific field of vision, a field, an area they were responsible for that they were to watch over. And they were there to make sure, to caretake that what happened in that sphere was what God wanted, and that if there were any enemies, whether it be animals or people or whatever, that might come to threaten them, that they could identify that and they could utilize God's way of getting rid of those enemies. So watchmen have a very specific field of vision, and they keep looking in that. If a watchman gets distracted from his field of vision and he turns around and is looking at someone else's field of vision, then that means his field is now vulnerable and open to assault and destruction. So part of being a watchman is knowing what our sphere is. And those spheres can change. Some spheres probably are more lifelong. There's a few of those. But our other spheres can change over time. So you want to constantly be asking God, God, what do you want me to watch over so that it's protected, so that it can be nurtured? I may not be the nurturer, but I could watch over it. And so it becomes important to know our spheres and to see our spheres as God sees them. Now, if spheres is a hard word for you, just think of it another way. What are your fields? We use that word figuratively because very few of us actually own agricultural land in which we can cultivate fields of grain. Okay, so for those of you who might have some of those real land to do that, you could talk about that real land. But we also use the term fields to describe spheres that we operate in. Spheres from which God's put us in so that we can experience fruitfulness and a harvest of fullness in that field. Now, these fields are fields that God has prepared us for. He's designed for us to enter into. But if we're not careful, if we're not moving with Him, we can become distracted or confused. And as a result, like the world system does, we'll want somebody else's field. See, that's what happened with Jezebel and Ahab and the gentleman's vineyard that they stole. That vineyard was God's portion for that man. It wasn't for Jezebel and Ahab. But they wanted it, so they took it. This is the way the world system operates. It operates like Jezebel and Ahab. It operates to see what kind of fields it can capture. See, here's the interesting thing about it. God gives each of us fields to operate in, and He's designed those fields creatively to be full. But if we operate in the world system, we not only does it destroy our fields ultimately, it also can put them in the hands of others, and it can destroy what others have as well. So it's important, and this is our time over the next week. So let me give you an assignment, very short. This first step of this assignment is for us to intentionally identify our spheres. It's really just realizing God has given us this kind of role to caretake certain fields, certain spheres of life. And if we'll do that in our sphere, then it allows for that fullness to come beyond what we ever could put forth on our own, to flow into others, and what others have to flow into us. But what it does, it opens up that fullness of the flow of God into us and through us. So there's several questions, two questions, three here. Which sphere or spheres, which spheres has God assigned you? This is what I want you to look at over the next day and a half to 2 days. Which spheres has God assigned to you, and you to those spheres? Now let me just give you some examples of spheres, okay? For instance, one of my spheres is my children, my home, my children, okay? And their children. And so there is a level of responsibility, a difference in each of those relationships, but in that house. Okay? That house is my household, my bloodline. Okay? So you may look at your sphere of your bloodline, that would be one of yours as well, and the bloodline that's come into you and that which will go forth from you. Okay, that could be one of your spheres. A sphere can be where you live. That could be, in a small way, in my case, my neighborhood, or it could be my city, Denton, Texas, or the state of Texas, or the United States, or North America. You can go on up in the size of the sphere. God doesn't give you the same assignments in all of them. I really do not have an assignment in the city of Denton and in my neighborhood and in the state of Texas right now. And my assignments within the United States are very limited. In fact, those of you who are in a couple of places in the United States listening to this, that's part of my assignment, is with what's going on in those places. So you have to know that. My assignments for the last several years have been in different parts of Asia, some in Africa, and just a little bit emerging in Europe and South America. So again, those things can change. You have to know what God's spheres He's assigned to you. Don't worry about whether they're big or little. That's unimportant. Just know your sphere. Okay, don't guess at it. You can say, well, I think it's this, and you may be right, but you want to confirm that with the Lord and say, Lord, is this what you're saying? So that over these next couple of days, you're going to come away knowing this is what I'm to pay attention to. Doesn't mean you can't listen to anything else. I watch news and I read things about Texas and about Denton and things about here in the United States. But when I process them, I'm processing what I hear as it connects to the spheres that God has given me. Now, if this seems a little awkward to you, if it seems a little conceptual, it's not conceptual, because these are our fields. God will have us cultivate these fields, and He's designed a level of fruitfulness to come forth to us in those fields. So know what your field is. Know what your fields are. Know what your spheres are. Today, over the next 2 days, I want you to look at, or next day, look at which spheres has God assigned to you. So as you listen to this on the 16th or 17th of June, I want you to begin to inquire of the Lord. Search this out. Now, this is an assignment that you really want to grab hold on. And like you can see through these different points, on the screen here, we're going to have an assignment for each day. These assignments build on each other, and they will bring us to that new moon next week on the 23rd. I'll be letting you know more about that tomorrow, but for now, just take this assignment and begin to inquire of the Lord, what your spheres that He's assigned you and you to them. If you have questions, write me. Again, you can connect with me on WhatsApp. I'm at Alan Faubion, ALLEN, FAUBION, @gmail.com. My phone number for WhatsApp is 214-636-2355. Thank you. Let me know what's going on with you and what the Lord shows you as you begin to go through this. When you receive your next segment tomorrow, you should be able to have a list of your spheres. It may not all be complete, it may not all be final, but it'll at least be a list that God can begin to build with you for the days ahead.